Atheists everywhere rejoice. It is I, wargokeith, your prophet of atheism. Yes, I have returned. Where have I been? Good question. To quote a great man, life finds a way. For instance, I have moved south, much, much further south. So, if anyone has some recommendations on how to deal with heat, please let me know. Well, it's only February and I'm already dying, so please help. Well, this is not the video of morals, a evolutionary imperative. I have been promising that I will deliver it. Honestly, I'm still working on the script. I am scripting it. It's a very important question to me, and I do plan on answering it. But this is something else. I am a big fan of a man by the name of K87 Jury. He does very good videos, very interesting. His videos on a response to evolution being a religion by Creation Liberty is really a must-watch. I highly, highly recommend it. They're educational, and he tears them apart. I was also another man by the name of Rise of Atheism, who again makes great videos. His Educating Creationist series is a must-watch as well. They're very funny, very informative. But I'm not here to talk about them. I wish I was. I could go on for hours. I'm here because of a man by the name of 2021 King, who wrote on 87 Juries, okay, history major, did Jesus exist? Now, I know I've somewhat tapped on this question before. I didn't like how I did it. So I'm going to be redoing it here. It's a very important question, and one that atheists hear a lot. Now, I'm throwing aside the fact I know why he wrote the question. He wrote it because 87 wrote something, said something he didn't like, figured that he would, with this one question, would have a chance to say, if 87 responded to it, well, of course Jesus existed. Then he would go, well, of course he did, therefore you know he is the Son of God, and therefore you are a Christian. Or he would say, or 87 could say, well, he didn't exist, in which he would be able to say, well, scholars say he existed, and scholars are smarter than you, so you're a moron. Yeah. I'm going to throw that aside, and I'm going to take an honest look at this question. I've been doing some research on it for the last several hours. This is not the only time I'm going to be answering this. I'm going to rephrase that. This is not the only response video I'm going to make to this. This is going to be many, and this one I'm just going to be focusing on the Gospels. But that aside, I want to take a look at this question, and I want to do it from as much of a human standpoint as I can. What I mean by that is I'm going to not take a look at the idea that Jesus was the Son of God. Many others are. We have been debating that issue for over 100 years, over 150 years. But that's not why we're here. Neither are we here to say Jesus is God. Again, that's the atheist-theist debate. We're here to take a look at Jesus as a man. Did that man exist? Now, to that extent, I am defining Jesus, and I feel guilty doing this. I actually do. But for the sake of this series, I feel I must. Now, if you agree with this definition, great. Please continue watching. If not, send me a video as to why not. And honestly, I want to know, and I'll be more than happy to discuss the subject with you. Now, I am defining Jesus as, Jesus was a Jew who was regarded as a teacher and healer, that he was baptized by John the Baptist and crucified in Jerusalem on the orders of the Roman prefect of Judea, Pontius Pilate, on the charge of sedition against the Roman Empire. Now, that's who that's who we're going to be looking at. If you're okay with that definition, great. If not, let me know why. There are 4 books that describe Jesus, and I, of course, am talking about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is where we get our primary evidence for him. This is where we find out what his life was like. This is where we find out his ministry. This is where we read about the man who I just described. So let's take a look at these books. It's very interesting to note that none of the writers have ever made a claim within the books to have known him. We normally don't think about this. I know when I was a Christian, I didn't. The reason why was because I read at the top of the page the Testament according to St. Matthew. And you read in the Bible, and you see Matthew was one of his disciples. However, you don't really see that. What you see in these is Matthew, or Jesus and the disciples. You read Jesus and the 12. You never read I. So none of them make that claim that they were there. But that actually kind of makes sense. And let me explain why. Let's consider when these books were written. The Book of Mark, which is considered to be the earliest one written, was the writing of its placed about 70 CE. John, which is considered to be the last one written, is in about 90 CE. Now, this is significant. I'm not just going to say that this was written by men who were old, but let's take a look at that. Now, the scholar J.D. Cresson, who a religious scholar to be precise, wrote, the life expectancy of Jewish males in the Jewish state was then 29 years. Now, Richard Carrier, he was a historian, said, now, we have reason to believe that only 4% of the population at any given time was over 50 years old, or age 70 is less than 2%. Now, and that is under normal circumstances. But the Gospels were written after 2 very devastating abnormal events, the Jewish War and the Neronian persecution, both of which would have had, combined, greatly reduced the life expectancy of exactly those people who were eyewitnesses to the teachings of Jesus. And it just so happens those are the sorts of people are curiously missing from the historical record precisely when the Gospels began to be circulated. Now, if you take a look at when it's thought Jesus was born, it's said roughly 4 CE. Taking into account the average age of Jewish circumcision. Now, it's thought the disciples were roughly the same age, so about from their 20s to their 30s. So that would place at the writing of the first gospel, they would have been around 60 or 70 from the writing of the first gospel. Now, and at the time of the writing of the last gospel would have been near 100 years old. Now, this is very unlikely when you consider that you're only talking 4% of the Roman population at that time lived to be over 50. And really take a look at the lives of the disciples. Would they have been among that 4%? Those 4% were made up primarily of the wealthy, those who had access to medical care, those who had access to good food, those who had something of a life of luxury and were able to be afforded it. The disciples weren't those men. They were hard-working fishermen. I mean, this is back-breaking labor. This is fighting the elements. This is dragging in nets full of fish. This is hunched over a table gutting fish. Even when they were with Jesus, they were walking about the land wearing sandals, sleeping on the dry ground. That's not a life of a man who will live to be 100 years old. And to take a look at one of the books, even particular, this is just look at Luke chapter 1, 1 through 4. If you read the scriptures, he does not claim to be an eyewitness, but rather the opposite. He says he is a compiler of events. Like the quote by Ellen Pagels here. She is a professor of religion at Princeton University, and she wrote, Although the Gospels of the New Testament, like the ones discovered at Nag Hammadi, are attributed to Jesus' followers, no one knows who actually wrote any of them, and that was written in 1995. Well, this is part one of this, and I'm going to be putting up some more of these videos tomorrow. As I said, please give me your thoughts, let me know what you think, as I am really interested. Well, this is Wargokeith, your prophet of atheism, signing off.